Corina Adores and HarlequinAudio present The Unlikely Pursuit of Mary Bennet by Lindz Mcleod, performed by Clare Corbett. Floriography, the language of flowers, was used to communicate secretly between friends or lovers in a time when society's oppressive nature did not allow certain desires to be discussed openly. This bud of love, by summer's ripening breath, may prove a beauteous flower when next we meet. William Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet, 1595. Act 2, Scene 2, line 118. Chapter 1. After procuring several fervent assurances that his wife would apologize sincerely and deeply for his absence from Rosings that evening, Mr. Collins reluctantly died. Charlotte sat by the bed for a few minutes, watching his reddened cheeks grow ashen and pale in the light of dawn. He had been a decent husband by all accounts, never knowingly unkind, ready to please and be pleased by everybody, and his loyalty never in question. All in all, her 4-year marriage had been more pleasant than she had expected, and yet less satisfying than she had hoped. Her fingers pressed into the cover of the leather-bound Bible she'd been reading, Mr. Collins' second favourite, the first being a gift from Lady Catherine de Bourgh, which never left his private study at the front of the house, leaving 5 temporary starbursts. Then she leaned over and tucked it under his limp arm. Swallowing down a lump in her throat, Charlotte rose and regarded the body with consternation. First, she would need to send Bessie to tell the undertaker. But then what ought she do? Though she was 31, Charlotte's experience of managing death so far had been limited to Mr. Collins' parishioners, since both her own parents were still alive and the rest of her relatives in good health. She owned a black dress, which she'd previously worn only to visit bereaved families with Mr. Collins, but a single dress would not do. She would be required to mourn in black for 1.5 years before she could wear even the slightest hint of colour, and even then she would be limited to dull purples and greys. She considered her range of dresses, none of which she was particularly attached to, apart from a lovely blue silk which her mother had presented to her as a special post-wedding gift. Dyeing 2 dresses would surely be enough. No, 2 would not do. Lady Catherine would expect Charlotte to present in a particular way at Rosings, and would not be slow to chide her inferior if she saw any reason to do so. Charlotte's fingers twitched into fists upon the realization that even the very smallest of comforts was to be denied her. The blue silk would have to be dyed too. Mr. Collins had always paid her an especial compliment when she'd worn it, though the scant pleasure of his attentions in that respect had usually been accompanied by the pain of knowing that she would be expected to join him later in the marital bed. The maid and the cook were hovering anxiously in the dim hallway outside the door when Charlotte emerged. "Bessie," she said to the maid, "pray run down to the village with several of my dresses and ask them to dye them black. Take the blue silk, as well as any 2 others. I must have something decent to mourn in." "Oh, Ma'am," Bessie said, her lip wobbling. "I'm dreadful sorry. I'd hope he would soon regain—" "You'll need to tell the undertaker too," Charlotte interrupted. A great wave of aching hollowness threatened to overcome her. There was so much to be done, and focusing on the tasks ahead made her feel steadier. "Have his woman come at the earliest opportunity to help us wash Mr. Collins and lay him out. And Mrs. Waits, would you please fetch me a pair of scissors and a locket? There ought to be one in a drawer in my room." They did as they were bid, Bessie disappearing out of the back door with a clatter, and the cook vanishing into the kitchen. Charlotte stepped back into the room and closed the door. The room, which had seemed so normal to her in the many hours she'd sat there tending to her
Sample complete. Ready to continue?